Well, thank you. I did say that. I said, I know. I'm so excited to be here and honored to join you because I know you might know that I think that librarianship is global and its mission is universal. But I also was a little reserved myself. I said, oh, I don't know. And so this was wonderful. And I really, really thank you. And thank you, Nick, for that. I should let you know that this young man right here is tweeting also. And this is going out right away, though some people might not be awake where he's sending it to. But we're tweeting and that. And it was exciting to just walk around and meet some of the library school students. Could you raise your hands, library school students? Yay, give them a hand. You are about to embark on a wonderful, wonderful adventure. And the conferences like you're attending for the next 2 days are going to be part of your survival kit and mode over the years. And you will find that the people that you connect with at conference, sometimes you'll only see them at conference, but those will be your colleagues for the rest of your career, and it will be a lifeline. It's great to be in the position of Librarian of Congress because I get to learn more about the Library of Congress, and I get to visit libraries throughout the world. And the reason why I've spent almost a week here in Great Britain is because we're learning. The Library of Congress is learning, and the institution that we're learning quite a bit from and spent 2 wonderful days with is the British Library. And I have to just thank again publicly Rolly Keating and the Chief Librarian, Carolyn Brazier, who's here. Carolyn, where are you? Who gave us such, they put a spotlight on you. Library school students, note that. That's the lady you want to talk to. And it was just such an uplifting part. But before I keep going, I have to ask for your forgiveness for something. At the British Library, they had a wonderful, wonderful workshop with one of their top curators on dialect. And I got to sit in, and I was the guinea pig, because they said, who of these visitors would like to participate? You from America, because they knew dialect. And these were high school students from Croydon. And this senior researcher who had very serious research about dialects and how languages change over time had those teenagers enthralled about the differences in language and what happens when you cross the ocean. And then he looked at me and said, ma'am, could you say something? And I started to speak. The kids started to giggle. I think they'd never heard such a flat accent, and I explained I was from the Midwest, and that's even flatter than normal, and that I had lived several places. Plus, there's the cultural part, too, because I'm African American, so that was that. But to sit in that classroom with those young people and see how enthralled they were with learning about language from this senior researcher and curator was really the essence of what the British Library had to offer us for those 2 days. Combining the best of a public library with a major research library. And to see it in action was thrilling, and we are taking that lessons back. The Library of Congress, and many of you probably know about it, is, and Rolly said I could say this confidently, the world's largest library. It has 164 million items. It has collections that include photographs, prints, everything you can imagine. And it has a shelf capacity, and I looked this up for being here in Britain, 832 miles, the equivalent of 14,000 kilometers that would go from London to Vienna, and that's the shelving capacity. It has the collections of 23 US presidents from George Washington to Coolidge, and if you don't know Coolidge, it's okay, a lot of us don't either. So, I could just see him coming down. Notable people in history, Thomas Edison, Clara Barton, Rosa Parks, Ralph Ellison, just about every, I.M. Pei, the architect who just turned 100, and we were able to bring out things from his collection. We have the piano that's Rachmaninoff used to compose, and his daughters gave that. We have original scores by just about every composer. It is a true treasure chest. However, as the librarian who spent most of her career in public service, I started out as a children's librarian, then went to work with teens. Really one of the best experiences, because if you can work with teenagers, you can work with any group. It's easier to work with 3- and 4-year-olds. They're, what's not to love, right? You have story time, you introduce them to the magic of words and reading. But about 12 years old, they're not as fun. And when I was a children's librarian, I was asked, would you take on this responsibility of getting teenagers involved? And at first I was a little leery, but then I found that's the time when they need us the most as information professionals. They often, as you know, and you remember your own teenage years. I know, it's sometimes a little tough, but that's the time when you need a person outside of your family, a trusted person that can give you the information for life. And so serving teens was something. And then I worked at the Museum of Science and Industry. It's very similar to your science museum in London, and I had a chance to go there and see, so that interactive, and did the first public library in that museum. And then I went to teach. That's why library school students are dear to my heart, at the University of Pittsburgh. And I was teaching and telling them knowledge is power, and go out. You are these people that are going to make a difference in communities. And after several years, one of my students came back and said, I think I'm going to come back and enter a PhD program. And I was kind of disappointed. I said, well, you know, you were at this big urban library, and you were fired up, what happened? And he said, well, you know, you told me to present my ideas and everything to the leadership and have all my reasons why and everything. And then I went up to the director of the library system and started to introduce myself and talk about my ideas, and he brushed me off and handed me over to somebody else. And that was the moment when I said, oh, you need to put your money where your mouth is. You need to go back into service and be that director that won't brush off a young person that's trying to present an idea. And so that's when I went back into public librarianship and had a wonderful experience at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, the first library system in the United States, the first library system that had branches. Some of the other libraries started, Boston Public, for instance, the big library, but they added branches later. Enoch Pratt Free Library was known for having branches and a central library opening the same time. And it was also the first library in the United States to have public relations. They would put their advertisements in the shirt cleaning things for men's shirts. So at that time, you had to have a cardboard type thing to hold the shirt, and they would put Enoch Free Library and all of this. The first library to serve teenagers. So there were a lot of firsts for this. And over time, I learned about the city. And coming into Manchester today, and when you mentioned, Nick, the resiliency of Manchester and what it means to be here, and I was so pleased that you kept your conference here, you didn't make any changes or that really spoke to that. The city of Baltimore is a challenged working class city. And it was so familiar coming in today. And in that city, and in so many cities and rural areas, libraries are more than just a place, as you know, to get bestsellers. They are lifelines for those communities. And so when the unrest happened in Baltimore and we kept those libraries open, we knew that that's what it meant. So I have to say that thinking about going to the Library of Congress was not only daunting, but I had to really think about it. Now you may say, she had to think about going to the Library of Congress? Yes, I did. Because in my mind and in experience, the Library of Congress, world's largest library, but it stood for this. It was an institution, and it was known for its scholarly, it was the scholarly place, and known for researchers, but not necessarily a place that if you physically went into it or even knew that you could go into it, a very inviting place, and not a place that you would think that you would be welcome if you weren't a serious scholar. And I knew that, and I said, how can I serve the public at the Library of Congress? How can I do that? I don't know. Do I want to give up public service? And then I had the opportunity to meet then President Obama, who nominated me. And in the interview, can you imagine being interviewed by the President of the United States? That was something, I must tell you, of all of my interview experiences. So students, don't worry, you got a few years. You got a few years, so just know. Surprisingly, what he was interested in the most was how to make the Library of Congress more accessible, and even used the word accessible. And he gave an illustration that I'll never forget. He said, you know, I had a very nice tour and went to the Library of Congress, and they showed me all of these treasures. Thomas Jefferson's handwritten draft of the Declaration of Independence. Oops, that's right, I'm in the wrong country. It was so unreal, just as a side note, to be here on July 4th. I almost felt like apologizing to everybody. So it's all over now, we're okay. Have a couple of more pounds, you know. It was actually lovely, though, to be here, because here you see the connectivity. But he was saying, President Obama was saying, I saw, and there's this draft of Thomas Jefferson, where they took out a section on slavery of the original Declaration of Independence, because they knew if they kept in that paragraph about abolishing slavery, that the Declaration of Independence would never have passed. And so in the final version, of course they took it out. They said, oh, we'll deal with slavery later. Well, it took a while. But that compromise and what they had to do at that time, with annotations by Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. So he saw that. He also saw the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets the night he was assassinated. And the Library of Congress has that, and what it had in his pocket. He had clippings, negative clippings about him. He kept that in his, I guess, to remind himself, and he had marked on it. And then President Obama, so he described other things that the library staff had shown him. And of course, he had borrowing privileges, and very few people do. But he said, if you became Librarian of Congress, what would you do to make sure that everyone, whether they're in person or through technology, because he was very astute about technology, could have access and see what I've been able to see because of who I am. And I have to say, that's when I knew I could do it, because accessibility, engagement with the public, getting people to even be encouraged to create themselves had been really a hallmark of what I wanted to do. And he asked, would I serve as the Librarian of Congress? And it was that word serve that really captured me in a very heartfelt way. Well, and then I got sworn in, and being sworn in is something, because you stand there like this and you're pledging that you will do all of these things. And of course I flubbed the part about without mental reservation on YouTube. And my mom is holding a Bible and looking at me like, oh, well, wow, that's something. Because I had teased her about dropping the Lincoln Bible. And so she was very pleased to give me that motherly look when I messed up. But you really realize, oh my goodness, this is a responsibility. So where to start, what to do? I had thought about it before, but how do you make the world's largest library with all of these things and 3,200 staff members that are experts? You're serving, the Library of Congress has a group of people, about 500 staff members who serve Congress directly. So in this country and other countries, you have parliamentary libraries that serve legislative, but the Library of Congress also is your equivalent of a parliamentary library, so direct line to them, plus managing the copyright process for the United States. And that's how the collection grew. Actually, in 1870, there was a law that was passed saying that anybody that applies for copyright and submits items for copyright have to submit 2 copies for the Library of Congress. And that's when the collection really grew. You have these experts, you have this collection, Teddy Roosevelt's diary, that president who on February 14th, Valentine's Day, wrote and put a big X on that page because his wife and his mother died on the same day, Valentine's Day, in the same house. And he put on there, my life has ended. So you're trying to digitize these things. Well, let's just say that sometimes, and this is why Catherine and Rolly and all that, and what's happened at the British Library was so inspiring. I think I can say this, Roswell is here, and it'd probably be tweeted, but sometimes public is not always welcome in major research institutions. I can say it like that. And it's interesting coming from a public library background where anyone can come into the doors, and you're really only asking them questions about what they want to satisfy their information need. Though you do want to know why they are asking, but you can't. That's our creed. And the idea that everyone might not be worthy of using the materials or had to explain why they wanted to, or not being as welcoming was somewhat daunting. So we just dived right in with something to connect those curators who looked like they could be in Great Britain because they had on tweed jackets with things and the glasses and the spectacles, you know, I mean, they really were something. And as I've learned from that class about dialect, they were stush. That's it. Oh, I could tell there's an age difference here. The 16-year-olds in your life will know what stush means. That means attractive but standoffish because you know you are, so you're stush. So if you want to seem cool to the young person in your life, also the other one they told me, and I have to share this one with you because it was something, the gentleman said, "What's your word for attractive?" And they came and they said, "Fit." And I thought, oh boy, I'm in trouble. Because, you know, in other countries, fit means athletically fit, but if you're fit, and then if you say something bad about somebody, you're parring them. So just a side note to be that. So we dove right in, and we said, okay, we're going to have and use new technology to connect the collections to people. It's about really connecting the collections. Because the collections, and I got a little bit of a new term that I learned since being in Washington, D.C., pushback. Because at first when somebody said, oh, you'll get pushback on that, and you'll get pushback on that. And I said, what's pushback? I found out. Oh, you don't want to do it. We said we would participate in National History Day with middle school students, and it was all online, right, interactive. Let's just say that some of the senior curators and researchers and reference librarians were not that enthusiastic. So then a staff member said, a young one like Roswell here, who's an ace on Twitter and all social media, said, what if we get younger staff members to run the keyboard and sit next to Ben Franklin? He looked like Ben Franklin. So that the older, more mature, more seasoned librarians could just espouse their knowledge and not worry about this, because if you're of a certain age, sometimes this can be distracting and you push the wrong button and you're in Zimbabwe or somewhere and you can't get back. So, okay, Zimbabwe, there you go. And then you become distracted, and that becomes the whole thing. That's why they tell people from 0 to 3-year-olds you shouldn't really use tablets for story time or things when you tell stories or work with kids, because the thing becomes the thing and not the story. So we had the younger staff members ready, and then the older, more mature, I have to stop saying older, the more mature and seasoned, it sounds like a piece of meat, they're seasoned. The seasoned reference librarians there. So the questions start coming in from young people all over the United States, you know. Becky from Idaho is 12, and she wants to know, and you could just feel some of the seasoned curators go, oh, Becky, 12, ugh. What on earth could I have that Becky could understand? Okay, you could just, I mean, the mood was not good. Even though we had, you know, food and things to help, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And so Becky wanted to know something about the president who got stuck in the bathtub, because that's a kind of pop. It was Taft. Let's just say Taft, and it was in the White House. He got stuck. And there's a children's book out about it now. It just came out. Wonderful. So, rolling of the eyes. And a couple of more questions. How tall is the tallest point in the Library of Congress? All this. And then the breakthrough question. I know about Hamilton. Another cringe, because that's a popular musical, but I know about him. Were there other colonial heroes who might have been vegetarians. Now, that was kind of interesting. And then my favorite, Ben Franklin with the puffs and things, looks, well. So we're all waiting. Benjamin Franklin and one of his visits, and he had this accent. It wasn't real British, but, you know what that means. When we pretend to have British accents, that's when we're being posh, okay? And we're just pretending, we don't have it, but that's when we're doing it. And he says, Benjamin Franklin, and one of his trips to Paris indicated in his letters that he was going on a vegetable regimen. I said, oh, and it was like, wow, okay, and it tipped up and that one, and then he kind of smiled because we were all saying, wow, that's cool. So that was in the manuscript that hasn't been cataloged, but that he knew that. And then they started to get into it. It's like, okay, we can make it short. How can we have value? And just to, when you're thinking, especially in our profession now, about how to have value with the generational divide in our profession, it's more about making those connections with the more mature managers often, who, and young people in the room, we're afraid of you. You can do things with the machines that we can only dream of. And you're coming out of library schools, you know how to do all of these things. And when we went to library school, there were punch cards. It's very daunting. I mentioned the Science Museum, to see the machines that you did your dissertation on in a museum. That was very humbling. So there is this technology gap. We talk about it with the public, but there's a technology gap in our profession that you need to have patience with us and realize that some of the differences in terms of management and that have more to do with being able to bridge that gap, and the more mature managers sometimes not even, you say things so fast sometimes, and we're like, and you're afraid to even mention that you don't know what a terabyte is, or is it the dirt? What is it? But that there's this bridge that can be really overcome by showing the value of the knowledge and blending it with the technology, because it's all about getting to that ultimate part. And I want to just say that I want to call you to action, because this is our time. This is the time that library and information professionals can actually put a stake in the ground and say, this is our wheelhouse, this is what we've been doing for quite a while. You may have heard a term that implies that sometimes facts aren't factual. And think about what you learn in library school, or what the real value of the library profession is. Authoritative, you learn about who's the source. It's one of the first things. Do you want the National Institute of Medicine's views on breast cancer, or a popular celebrity that just wrote a book? I want to hear what that celebrity did, but in terms of giving back, so that the whole point of looking at authoritative sources, what means authority, the whole point of, is it current, all of these things that we go by to determine what's the best information to give, is something that people are hungering for right now. How can we tell? What is it? The scariest moment, and I thought we would lose a few curators. We were showing that draft of the Declaration of Independence, to a few legislators. And Russell said I could mention this if I don't mention names. And these are treasures that are kept in a locked vault with temperature control. You have to put on an extra jacket to go in there. I mean, it's that. I don't even have the code to get into this. They call the security, the Capitol Police, the U.S. Capitol Police, to let you in, and then they stand there while you look at these treasures. So we're showing these legislators and one person, so I won't identify by anything else, the same Declaration of Independence thing with Thomas. How do you know this is real? Well, someone almost fainted. And that's the job of an administrator, as you know, to be the bridge also between people that might not know what you do and why, and the people you serve, so you can get to that, and the staff. And so I had learned enough about the library at this point to say, well, the library has a separate research and development and authentication group, and they make sure that the provenance is there and everything like that. But the fact that that could even be questioned, something like that, at that time, really it was something, because the research people, I mean, they checked the paper and this, and asked, just like a museum, it's all of that, was very striking. How do you know it's real? Where did it come from, and who produced it? So the call to action is to remember that librarians are the original search engines. And I had the American Library Association conference last week, and we have t-shirts. Librarians, the original search engine. Before a lot of the online people were going to and using, and that's our trade in stock, that we can get it. We may not know what it is, but we know where to find it. We were the first to use online databases and different things. This is what we do. We also recommend, we've been called the guides on the side as people surf and use electronic resources. We are able to help you. And as we all know, we're not in it for the money. And that has helped because we are trusted. I know some of you have had this, where just because you're a librarian, people trust you. They really do, because they know that we're in it to give information, to provide the information, to help people find things that will help them in life. It is a service, and it is something that we do, no matter what type of library you're in, university library, college library, public library, research library, but you're always doing that. And even if you're not on the front line serving people directly, you are preparing things for them, you are conserving the collections for future generations. Think about the responsibility of conserving and preserving for future generations. That is your responsibility. So, as people are wondering what's real and what's not, who can we trust? The library profession has, I think, a special responsibility, and we should wear it proudly. We have been in this business for how many years? Hundreds, thousands of years. We have the strongest stereotype of any profession, right? How many of you have been, when you tell somebody you're a librarian, they say, oh, you don't look like a librarian. And they go on and on. And if you wear something a little snappy, you're just shocked, and amazed. And I'm sure there are people in your family when you said you wanted to be a librarian. That happened to me, but not as severely, because they knew I wasn't going to be a musician. Both parents were musicians, so that seemed good. But you have this built-in trust of a group of people who are providing information in a world that is wondering where to go and they want to know. That call to action is to think about accessibility in as many ways as you can. I'm going back to the British Library. Being able to have almost in front of the library when you first go in, and my mother is here with me, not here today. She's doing something in London, I don't know what. She won't, and this definitely, I can't tell her age, but Mr. Goodman is here and he knows my mom. So let's just say she's of a certain age, but very sprightly. And when we walked into the British Library, she said, this is like a public library, because she knew we were coming to really see about another national library that is really doing great things and doing that. And that's the kind of library it is. That's not my mother. I turned my phone off. I told them, I said, I have to turn off my phone. They said, oh, are you going to get some important thing from the States about the Library of Congress? I said, no, it's my mother. She's back in London. That's who will be ringing the phone. So, Murray. So you have this very accessible public library feel, and then as you get more inside, the reading rooms and that. It's the best of both worlds. And you will hopefully be seeing from the Library of Congress, when you come and even follow us on Twitter, please. They say that you're not supposed to ask for followers, but you are my British peeps. So thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But that's the, to be able to look at how you can make things welcoming. While we were there, we went into one of the reading rooms, and there was this young woman who was a PhD from Princeton. She's there, and what drew me to her table was she was looking at this wonderful folio of, and as she explained, Ethiopian manuscripts from the 16th century. And she'd been doing research all over the world. And she mentioned even the Library of Congress because she heard my accent. Now, she didn't know that I was from the Library of Congress, but she mentioned that. And she said, and I have to say that the British Library is the most welcoming to researchers. And I said, yes, it is. Because it is. Other national libraries are looking to the British Library now in what they have done to combine that research and public field. That evening they had an Africa Rights conference and people from all over were there. They had a Russian Revolution exhibit, the best gift shop that rivals a museum store, all of these things, and then you go into the reading rooms. That is where you can look at accessibility no matter where you are. And a lot of accessibility, making things available, has to do with our library regulations, requirements from school libraries, college libraries. What hoops are we making people jump through to use our services? How much identification? This gets back to librarian as custodian, when the actual physical items were unique and we had to protect them with our lives. You've seen the pictures of books being chained to bookshelves in medieval times and other times, and there's some librarians that would put their bodies in front of books, reference only and this and that, because we were protecting, and it comes from a good place, we were protecting the item because it was unique. Now that we don't have to protect the item except with research, we can look at what are the barriers to people using it and using our services and technology. And then after we've made things as accessible as we can in terms of physical and our rules and regulations. What about engaging people with authors and live streaming and doing all types of things to get them engaged with our resources? And then the final part is to encourage them to be creative themselves with learning spaces and opportunities to present their own works and create their own works. And that's the height of it. So I just want to thank you all for having me here to share, to give me an opportunity to visit one of the best national libraries in the world. We are aspiring at the Library Congress, and we're doing so many things to be the best of a public library and a research library and a nation's library and a world's library. And so you have given me this opportunity to also reinforce what I've known for years, and what I've found the most comforting about this profession is that librarianship is global. And I do have British library peeps. So I want to open it up because I know we had time for a few questions, comments, anything, and I have on what I like to call my Oprah Winfrey microphone. So I can step and walk around. This is so cool. I just love it. I have a special belt and everything. But I know there were some possible comments. Now, don't be restrained now. This is what I want, yeah. I don't know if they had a mic for you. Oh, there he is. And one student already said she has to leave early for a job interview, so good luck.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. In a climate of growing nationalism and xenophobia, how can libraries foster a more inclusive environment?
That's...
Oh, and thank you for the speech. It was great.
Oh. Well, here's something you can do. Just like we used to say, books battle it out on the shelves, we can be places for that engagement to bring out collections. At the British Library, they had a gay pride exhibit, and the Library of Congress did the same thing, where we brought out relevant aspects of our collection. We have the Leonard Bernstein collection, Walt Whitman. And some of it was just, people didn't even know Walt Whitman was, gay or whatever, they're just bringing out the collections, bringing out what you have when they connect to, especially to things that are going on in the world. So we've started these pop-up exhibits. We had one with, there was a Comic-Con conference. Well, the Library of Congress has the world's largest collection of comic books. Who knew? Nobody, except serious researchers in comic book stuff, right? There was a Comic-Con conference in Washington, D.C., and we said, okay, we're going to connect to that and bring out the first Batman and the first Avengers. And then Linda Carter, the Wonder Woman, came to present a copy of the script of the new Wonder Woman from Patty Jenkins, who said wonderful things about libraries. But we were able to make an event out of that. So connecting your collections, what you do, also having more discussions, being that place for community dialogue or just discussion about items. San Francisco Public Library, when we were there, they had a whole thing on how to parent in the new age. And it was sponsored by the Children's Department. And that was really something. You parents have a lot to do in the new age. But that's, think of what's going outside and how you could bring people in. And that seems to work a lot. We also did one on the inaugural when we had the new administration, and we brought out all of our inaugural addresses, George Washington's handwritten, and displayed them. Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. And if you don't have any questions or anything now, we are available on Twitter. Or email, right? Yeah, we do that.
Thank you. Hi, Carla. Thank you for speaking as well. My name's Richard. I work in a public library in in Lancashire. I'd just like to ask if you've got any thoughts on the naming of the Obama Presidential Center.
Interesting, because the National Archives, that was founded after World War II, is responsible for the official papers of the presidents and departments too, like Department of Energy. Before that, I mentioned that the Library of Congress had George Washington so that became an official change and transition. There are 19 presidential libraries. The records are kept at times at the archives, and that depends on the arrangement that the president makes with the archives about how much will be in their library, how much will be at the archives. And so having a center seems to be more of an engagement thing, similar to the Carter Center. President Jimmy Carter has a very active programming part for his center. President Reagan has more of a museum type thing. So it depends on the president how much they want their library center to be and what. The Clinton Library does something different, and the Kennedy Library in Boston. When you look at the different things, you'll see and that's the option. So that was a choice that they make. And also for the centers, they get private funding for that. That's not government funding. So that's where the choice comes in, because they get that. So it's really interesting to see that. There's a whole thing on presidential libraries that's fascinating. Mm-hmm.
I read recently that the important national documents, such as the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Rights, would be evacuated in event of a world-ending scenario, such as nuclear warfare and epidemic. How far do these documents define national identity for the United States?
Magna Carta, similar. Okay, so and we saw that, and the way that that's treated is what these founding documents are. And you should know that not only are those documents the ones that, it's elaborate, nobody knows where they're going. But the Library of Congress, because of what it has a similar plan. And there are items that are identified as if anything happens, they are ready to go. And they're always kept at the ready. And it's interesting to see what things are determined to be the things that if all else fails, we cannot lose this. It really strikes you in terms of what the identity is. That's why that draft of the Declaration of Independence is called, the Library of Congress has about 11 national treasures that are in that vault, and that's one of them, because you see the final, but this was the one that did it, yeah. So rare librarians, rare book librarians and manuscript librarians, you all have a lot of fun. Oh, he's almost ready. Yeah, one more, he said.
Hello, my name is Ruth and I work for the National Health Service in the Midlands.
Oh.
My interest was that you had various references to the genuineness of artifacts.
Yes.
I wondered, to what extent do you think that librarians and information professionals also have a role in terms of looking at the quality of that evidence that they contain,
yes,
as opposed to the genuineness of the items?
There is a difference. The authenticity of the production of something is different from the quality of what it is. the quality is, of course, somewhat subjective. And I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I am a true librarian. So I was just on the way up here reading this on reading, writing, and living with books by the London Library. And it's got a wonderful essay by Virginia Woolf about that type of thing. Because, you know, there are people that are saying, well, 50 Shades of Grey, right? Bestseller, saved the American publishing industry, did all kinds of things. But it is, you know that that's who wrote it. So being able to judge the quality of the content is a matter that is more important if it's something like medical or scientific, and that's where you're getting to who produced it rather than that. So quality and authenticity and authority on a certain matter is where you get into quality. So I didn't read that particular book, but I mean, so it's easier in fiction. People are just judging the quality of, you know, writing or whatever like that. But yeah, we have to be a little careful with that sometimes because we all have preferences. Oh, he said he's giving me that. See, I could stay here all day with you guys, but you have other sessions and you're going to have a wonderful conference. You're just starting out and you're in a wonderful place. And I appreciate you letting me join you today. So he's giving me the rope.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'll ask you to stay here for 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be here.
One final thing we would like to do before we thank Carla and allow you to leave the stage, which is that one of you during that described Carla as a superstar librarian, and I think we can all agree that's exactly what she is. And so we didn't want to let you go without marking your trip here and thanking you, and we thought the best way to do that would be to award you an honorary fellowship of CILIP.
All right.
In the spirit of much of what you've spoken about today, we thought who better to give that award than the winner of one of our awards here. We have an award called the Aspire Award that was set up in the memory of my predecessor, Bob McKee, here at CILIP. And it is to recognize and celebrate new professionals coming into the profession. So it's a great pleasure to ask Helen Lawrence, who's our winner of the Aspire Award, to come and join us on stage, give you your fellowship. Thank you.
Congratulations! Oh my goodness! What have you been doing?
Helen, can you come around this way?
Oh, this is wonderful! Oh, Aspire, this is wonderful. Oh, starting to look, huh? Thank you so much, and the Aspire Award, that is really something.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, and I think finally just to say, please join me in giving Carla a huge thank you and a huge round of applause.
And thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is beautiful.
Absolutely.
The Queen. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
This is going right back and in my office, and I'll get kind of posh too.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So that brings us to the end of this session. Just a couple of very quick closing announcements. We're going to go downstairs for refreshments now. If you are planning on attending the copyright, the card game session later this afternoon, spaces are limited, so do please get there early. But please enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you later. Thank you very much.